Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. It is Tuesday morning left guard, Matthew Coller, along with former Minnesota Viking Jeremiah Sirles. And Mr. Sirles, we have some breaking news that just came out, which is actually kind of bad for the Vikings. Anthony Richardson, the Colts quarterback, has been benched
He
in
tapped out.
favor.
He tapped out, so
Yes,
he's done. He
tapped out. Yeah, we'll talk about it. For Joe Flacco. So you're telling me a veteran quarterback who knows where to go with the football and has a good offensive line is now going to face a Vikings offense that has struggled against good veteran quarterbacks the last couple of weeks, right? This is not good for the Vikings.
No, I don't think it is either, because you look back and we asked the question last week, is this a blueprint? Did the Lions create a blueprint? And it's not necessarily a blueprint as much as the kind of an answer of just replace the blitzer over the middle of the field. And you can only do that if you have good protection and a quarterback that knows where to go with the football. If Anthony Richardson's playing Brian Flores, this is a 4 interception game, not sure, holding on to the ball, trying to clear with his legs. But the veteran quarterback that's going to understand and watch the game tape from the last 2 weeks and see exactly what this defense did, exactly how Matt Stafford and McVay figured it out, exactly how Ben Johnson and Goff figured it out. It's going to be on Flores to change some things up and give Flacco some really different things to look at, or else he's a veteran enough presence to understand how to go attack this defense right now.
And I do not think that Shane Steichen is a joker. I think he does know what he's doing. He came from the Philadelphia team that had so much success, and then they actually struggled a lot after Shane Steichen left, and it feels like they're just starting to get it figured out in Philadelphia a little bit. But what he has been dealing with Anthony Richardson is a quarterback who never should have been playing in the National Football League over the last 2 years. They do this every time, Jeremiah. We go through it. This guy's a raw prospect. He needs to sit. He needs to develop. There needs to be a veteran quarterback who plays while he figures out just what it means to be in the NFL, how to read a defense, how to run the operation, how to get your body in game shape to not have to tap out when you get tired, as we don't see Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, the scrambling quarterbacks, having to do that, or even something as small as knowing how in the post-game press conference to say, I banged up my leg a little bit on the play, but it was good. It just got dinged, and that's why I came out. Right. Just to know not to say that, because but here's the crazy thing about Anthony Richardson. The man is the same age as Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. This is Sam Darnold kind of all over again, where the team cannot help itself. We got this shiny toy. It needs to go out there and play. And he shouldn't have been playing last year. He gets banged up. That puts his development behind. And I just think no matter how many times we tell teams, Mahomes and Rodgers, guys, now Jordan Love too, they developed. It's okay. They're like, no, I don't think I will. I want to play that guy.
They can't. Yeah. And it's exactly like you said. It's the shiny new toy effect, right? I have 3 young children. I can't bring I have a toy that's sitting on top of my refrigerator right now, because you can buy a toy with your Halloween candy. So I don't have gallons of Halloween candy sitting around my house forever, more for my own personal interest than my children's. Right. But they're just every day. They're like, can I touch it? Can I play with it? I'm like, it's not till Halloween. Well, how many more sleeps is Halloween? Right. That's exactly what these teams do with these quarterbacks. They just look at him and they're like, oh, we'll develop the crap out of this guy. He'll sit. And then the second they get in the building and they watch him throw the ball one time, 70 yards to receiver, I think this guy can play right now. And it's not the case. And I have not been a Richardson fan since the moment on his podcast he said that the NFL is easier than college, because I learned at a very young age, if you don't respect the NFL, you're toast. You have to respect every player, every organization, every game plan, every practice, everything, because it is the hardest job in the world to do as a football player. You're at the elite of the elite. And for him to take that mindset going into the year already raised a bunch of question marks for me. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that. He should have been playing last year. His development's gone. Joe Flacco, though, he did it in Cleveland last year. He's looking like he can do it again this year. I worry that if they try and put Anthony Richardson back out there next week, if things don't go well, that the Colts are headed for a train wreck of a season.
Well, and I think we also, just with the Colts organization, you have to look to the very top where it's Jim Irsay. And this was an organization that had one of the great talents in history at quarterback and could not find ways to keep him healthy either. And I think that's a big part of development, by the way, is that these young quarterbacks, they go in there They don't know what they're doing, and they get hurt. And Anthony Richardson has his shoulder injured, and then that delays his throwing. And that was the biggest thing with him that he needed to develop, was the throwing part of it. But now I also see him not really reading the field very well, not running the operation, where he's fumbling on snaps and those handoffs, the whatever they're called, the RPO type of handoffs and things like that. It's just not very sharp, and that's what you need to get from developing. There may be some argument, well, you have to develop while you're on the field, but I don't think that that's really actually true. I think developing in practice and in meetings and all those things, we discussed this with JJ McCarthy. The first thing you said after McCarthy got hurt is maybe this will actually protect the Vikings from themselves, because even as much as Kevin O'Connell is like, we're going to develop this guy, we're going to take it slow, he had that preseason game and a couple of great practices, and you could see the stars in his eyes, like, ooh, if Darnold has a bad game, I'm going to play my guy. And this protected them from themselves. It might have actually been the best thing for JJ McCarthy. Now, that doesn't mean every quarterback needs to sit, but it is crazy to think about. Jaden Daniels, similar skill set, right? Huge arms, super fast. At 21 years old, he was throwing like 10 touchdowns at Arizona State. And now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL so far. I just think that Anthony Richardson, this is probably the best thing for him, is to be sat down, but he has also been failed by the Indianapolis Colts for forcing him into this situation.
Yeah, and it all goes back to the Tapout thing, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it. I can't believe it. It was one of the most unreal things I've ever seen. It's one thing if it's the first quarter and you're like, "Oh, I need a win." But you're talking 3rd down, 3 minutes left in the game, AFC South Championship type game on the line, and to tap out like that, I mean, even Ryan Kelly came out and was talking about how that's not a culture thing. That's just a young player making a bonehead mistake, and it just goes back to why you should hire guys like me as your agent, to help you understand things to say and things not to say when there's a microphone in front of you.
Well, the tap out thing too, it also just goes to inexperience. Okay, so Sam Darnold didn't know he was mic'd up when he said, "I'm seeing ghosts out there." So that is a little bit different, but it kind of reminds me of the same type of thing, like where it's going to end up sticking with a guy that is a young and bad mistake. And from Anthony Richardson's standpoint, you would much rather call a timeout, take a delay of game, or just check to a run play and say that you saw something out there. But you taking yourself off the field, it's not just tapped out physically. And Brian Flores did kind of point out when we asked him about that today. And Richardson, of course, they couldn't have made this announcement or right before Flores talked. So we didn't get a big analysis of Joe Flacco from him. But I mean, his point was kind of the play right before he had to dodge some tacklers and do a lot of things with his running ability to get there. But from his perspective, you are the guy. Like, I don't think there's any good way to explain to a young player how much you are the guy of an organization and a franchise, and everyone is looking to you. And if you're like, I gotta get a break here, it's not going to work. Like, they need to believe that you are never going to let them down. And on a 3rd down in a situation where you need something there, you let everybody down by pulling yourself off the field, because still with his talent, he gives them the best chance to convert there. So it was a big deal. I think it was a big deal for the locker room. And I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know anything about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if the veteran players said to Shane Steichen, "We need Flacco to play, dude. This guy can't complete any passes. He's tapping out. He's doing things that very inexperienced players do in this league. And we're a good football team," which circles back to, I think that now suddenly we go, this is a lot harder with a great line, a great running back, receivers who can make plays. Josh Downs' catch last weekend was absolutely incredible. He can play. Pittman can play. This is much more of an even contest, I think, with Flacco in there, who I believe, after watching last year, can still quality execute an NFL offense.
Yeah, and I was curious, it came up when I was doing my last podcast and I looked at it, and then before I jumped on, I checked the line for what the game. It's moving 2 points in favor of the Colts. Right?
Wow.
It's moved that far and just making that one move, and it's crazy to think about, but you look across the NFL, Cleveland made one move. and Jameis Winston led them to a win against the hottest team against the Ravens. Sometimes change is all you need. Just a little bit of change, because when you're struggling like the Colts have been with Richardson, and oh my gosh, he's 4 of 20 at one point, right? I saw that stat pop up. It's a tough thing to come to the sideline and be like, no matter what I do, I'm blocking my ass off here, dude. This dude can't hit the broadside of a barn. It's frustrating. Versus a little bit of a change and a little bit of a, ooh, this is fun. This is new. Let's play for Flacco. Let's get him. We know the things he can do. It does kind of create a microcosm for the Vikings of running into a bit of a buzzsaw, even when it doesn't feel like one. And it's something that the Vikings are going to have to play extremely well defensively and offensively, put up a good amount of points, because I do think there's going to be a lot of adjustment periods for Brian Flores to, hey, this is the Flacco game plan versus the Anthony Richardson game plan. We're watching tape from 2 weeks ago when Flacco played versus just the most recent tape. It's going to be a lot of moving chess pieces for Brian Flores, with also having to fix a lot of issues from the last 2 weeks with the Lions and the Rams.
Right, because this isn't just a quarterback change. This is a complete change of offensive philosophy as well. And Flacco can handle all the same type of things. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as Stafford or Goff,
No.
but intellectually and also the noise and things like that. What we've really seen is when young or inexperienced quarterbacks come to US Bank Stadium, they melt into a puddle. But that doesn't happen with Jared Goff, and it's not going to happen with Joe Flacco, who has played in 2017 against the Vikings in US Bank Stadium before. He knows what that's like. He's played in the AFC North for most of his career, playing at places like Pittsburgh, hostile environments, national TV games. He's played in the Super Bowl. Like, there isn't anything that is going to be a factor that can help. And also with the Vikings, you're throwing defenses at him that he can identify and that he can make adjustments at the line of scrimmage. All these things were going so far against Anthony Richardson that I'm sure the Colts also said, yeah, we can't beat Brian Flores' defense if we have a young quarterback that's going that way. But how far do you want to go with this? Of course, it's bad for the Vikings that they're going to play a more experienced quarterback. But I think with Flores, and he talked about it today, a little bit of a wake-up call for the defense of the thin margins between winning and losing. And I think that they're also kind of kitchen sinking this one a little bit too, thinking we've got to prove that we are that top defense and get the confidence back. And they also have a mini bye week to get prepared. How do you kind of think that they will make adjustments to what happened that went wrong against Detroit and the Rams?
No, the number one thing that baffled me watching that Rams game is 0 sacks. 0 sacks against an offensive line that is on their third left guard, their third center. I mean, you'd look at that and I was thinking, man, this is going to be a Grenard feast fest or a Van Ginkel. Like, they're just going to go for it. And they just could not get home. And Stafford at times was getting the ball out quick, but there was also times where he sat back there and patted the ball, and there's Puka Nacua 18 yards over the middle of the field. And so if I'm looking at this from a player standpoint, those guys got to play better up front. That's a big way of fixing this, is giving, hey, win your one-on-one matchups like you've been doing through the first 6 games of the year and get to the quarterback. Go get to it. Don't make me scheme it up. Go get to it. From a schemes perspective, you really have to start picking and choosing now, again, when to blitz and when not to blitz, because teams are starting to figure out the tendencies and just replace the blitzer. And if that's the case, then you guys start telling Harry and Bynum, hey, you guys got to play a little bit more up, right? Because that void between the linebackers and the safety right now is where the last 2 weeks have been exposed. And I don't mean that in negative expectation, except for that it's on tape. It's on tape. And what you are is who you put on tape. And so that's going to be where this team's going to attack. And so you're going to have to play your safeties up a little bit more, or trust your guys up front to get home and try and keep those linebackers to drop a little bit to take away that middle of the field piece of it, because that's where you're going to get tested very quickly in this game.
It did feel a little bit like the Donatel days the last 2 weeks where both teams were like, okay, we'll just complete 10 passes on a drive. That's fine. And those two quarterbacks, they're going to take what you give them because they've been in the NFL for a long time and they're great. And that there needs to be a lot of credit given to the receivers, the quarterbacks, the schemes for the opposing teams over the last 2 weeks as well. But I think that what the Rams really did well was they said, yeah, we'll run 4 or 5 bubble screens or quick little passes in a drive. and negate a lot of that blitzing. They also lost their best blitzer, I think, in Blake Cashman at this point, which was a big deal. But I think that the Colts are going to come in, and we saw it last year from teams like the Chargers that came in and said, yeah, we'll have Justin Herbert convert 40 passes in a game that only 2 of them travel over 10 yards. We've got no problem with that. The average, how about this for a what does that stat mean? What does that stat mean? 2.5 seconds. Both Goff and Stafford average snap to release 2.5 seconds. What can a defense do?
That's such a frustrating thing as a defensive lineman, right? Because you're just rushing and rushing and ball's gone, ball's gone, ball's gone. And you're just, man, I'm never going to get home. And all of a sudden you rush again, like, oh, here comes another 2.5 second. And that's when he holds it. And oh my gosh, that was my chance. And then you miss it. And it's a very frustrating thing. And I can remember in 2017 when we had some teams that were just going the quick pass game, listening to Everson and Brian Robinson and Daniil Hunter on the sideline, just be like, why can't we just cover them a little bit more? We're getting there, right? We're beating our guys. It's a very frustrating thing for a defensive player to have that. And that's why, watching the film back, our safety's got to get closer to the line of scrimmage. And I don't know if that's because Flores is worried about guys going over our heads or whatever it might be, but the way that you take away the 2.5 seconds is by getting your safeties a little bit more than 12 or 15 yards, having them stand at 11, be there, sink back to 15, keeping things in front of them still, but forcing them to go over your head. Because if they want to go over your head, that 2.5 turns into 2.7, 2.8, 3 at times. That's the way you force that. It's not by getting to the pass rush quicker or blitzing more. I don't think that's the answer. The answer is playing tighter coverage up towards line of scrimmage and daring them to throw it over your head and having the faith in your corners to be able to do that. And then saying, hey, if we're going to do this, that's where it goes back to my first point. If we're going to do this on the back end, you guys up front have to win. You have to win if this is the strategy we want to do. And Joe Flacco's not going to move a lot. He's not going to get out of the pocket. He's not going to escape and do things with his legs. I would expect a lot more of guys trying to really get after him on that front 5.
Yeah, and I think there just needs to also be a little more confusion, but maybe the quarterbacks over the last 2 weeks were not confused because they were running tempo and they were running the quick stuff, and you don't have to do a lot of changes if you're the quarterback when you're running a bubble screen. Just go up, snap, bubble screen, and you're not going to get confused trying to read a bunch of things about where players are lined up. Hang on. Let me silence my phone real quick so I can tell you that Us Days at US Cellular is back again. Exclusive offers just for customers, just to say thanks. Right now, you'll get $1,200 off any phone plus $400 off any tablet. Amazing, right? But my family is so excited about their new devices, they keep texting me during the show. They're all about Us Days deals like $1,200 off any phone, $400 off any tablet. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com for details. I want to hear your opinion of how this offense can continue to operate, but also it has to operate better. They are at the bottom of the National Football League in terms of plays per drive and time of possession per drive on offense. And sometimes when we think about how many points they've scored as a team, we kind of overlook that they have 3 defensive touchdowns so far this year. The offense has been good. It's average by a lot of metrics. Expected points added, right there in the middle of the league. This is good enough to be a playoff team, good enough to compete. But I don't think that being the 14th best offense is enough to make an argument for a serious contender for the Super Bowl. That has not been how it's worked in the NFL, unless it's the Chiefs last year who didn't have the best regular season offense, but we know they are operated by the best quarterback in the world. So how can this offense stay on the field more and maybe throw it to Jordan Addison a few more times so we don't get any more cryptic IG posts?
Free 3, baby. Free 3. It all goes down to the run game. Everything about anytime you hear about time of possession and controlling the clock and staying ahead of the sticks, all the addeds or whatever coach speak you want to say, it comes back to having a successful running game, being able to rely on the running game, not have it be a changeup. And I felt like that's kind of been the Vikings' MO, is the run game's been more of the changeup than the staple. And when you want to talk about how do we flip some of those stats you just mentioned, it's running the ball. It's taking care of the football and not having mental errors and guys running through and putting negative plays in the run game. It's being consistent in the run game and going through there. And Aaron Jones is a good enough back, and we've seen him do it time and times again just to continue to rely upon him. and then also being more of a quick explosive offense is the words I want to use to kind of describe it, which is not, you hear explosive and you think down the field, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. I'm talking more two-step slant, Jefferson, explosive, quick offense, using tempo, getting up on the ball, 3-yard out to TJ Hawkinson when he comes back. Bubble screen to Jordan Addison quickly, ball out of my hands, getting the ball in a high completion percentage throw and making that quick and keeping a defense on their heels. And I think using tempo, Sam seems pretty comfortable when you go with tempo. Like he seems like he's in command because it forces the defense to show their hand. You're up at the line of scrimmage. You have time for KOC to be in your head and tell you something to look at or see. So I would love to see us go a little bit more tempo, but not tempo where we're throwing incompletes. Tempo, if you
Right.
go tempo, it's got to be high completion percentage throws. It can't be tempo, 10-yard in route incomplete. Oh my gosh, we just burned 4 seconds off the clock. Right. That's the type of stuff that I would like to see this offense continue to evolve and take the next step with.
They just haven't had a lot of sequences that have gone first down pass completion 6 yards, second down run, first down.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened very often. It's mostly been, and Jones has been great on his first down runs, but I think he averages 4.9 yards per attempt on first down runs. But it's been a lot of, all right, first down, handoff to Aaron Jones, maybe run play action on second down, or if it doesn't work, it has to be a second down pass. We know Kevin O'Connell will not run twice in a row, no matter what, if the first down run is not successful. And there's been a predictability a bit about this offense. They have run on first down twice as much as they have passed on first down. I think that has to switch a little bit. I'm not for second down and 10 runs. That's not a very efficient play, but I am for a 6-yard quick out to Jordan Addison. I do think Jordan Addison needs the ball a lot more. I tend to agree with him. I don't think that you should post anything on the internet that can be perceived, whether he meant it that way or not, that can be perceived as this receiver is unhappy, because we know the connotation of that based on other receiver things around the NFL. But this is a guy that a quick little slant, a quick in and out, something like that, he's good at. He will get open, and he's not getting pressed by 2 guys at the line of scrimmage because those guys are on number 18. And TJ Hawkinson, I think, is the real linchpin to this whole thing, because that's your 6-yard completion guy. And he can turn it into 10 or 12 by breaking a tackle, as he's been so good at. I think that they really have been running it successfully enough to stay on the field, but they also have not had enough of these short completions. The other thing is too, though, the penalties are killing them.
Oof.
You can't line up. You can't snap the ball. You can't get your play calls into your quarterback to get them out to everybody getting lined up. Why are they committing so many, quote, procedural penalties? I never said the word procedural ever for anything before this year, and I feel like I've said it about 500 times this year.
It's baffling to me. I have no idea. I wish I had an answer because I think the same thing. I'm watching it going 4 seconds on the shot clock. What are we doing? Why is this taking so long? And that's kind of where my train of thought went to tempo. You take a lot of the variability out of the timing if you practice tempo during the week and it's guys looking for signals on the sideline and everyone getting lined up. And now you're lined up with 27, 26 seconds left on the shot clock. Then we can change the play. Then everyone can get lined up because there is a missing link in the chain of command, right? The chain of command, offensive coordinator, KOC calls the play or talks about the play before it. They decide on a play, goes to Sam. Sam goes in the huddle. It goes to the line of scrimmage, and then there's a possible check, right? That is the chain of command when you're playing in the KOC offense. Somewhere in there, and I don't know where it is, and none of us will because it's all in house. There's a blip, and that blip is causing 5 to 8 seconds to come off, and that's where either we're feeling hurried out of the huddle, and so guys aren't getting lined up properly because they're hurrying up because there's someone in the huddle's going, hey, 10 seconds, right? Or we're losing a lapse in judgment because we're in such a hurry, we're not listening to the snap count, right? Or we're losing a lapse in judgment, we're not getting and able to get to the checked play because we're running out of time. And all those things are procedural, as you say. And I really don't have an answer as to why this is happening. In the NFL, this should not happen. This is the kind of stuff you see in college. This is the kind of stuff you see in high school, right? Going through. But in the National Football League, this should be as easy as breathing. The operation of calling a play and getting to the line of scrimmage and checking a play should not be hard. I watched the Pittsburgh Steelers do it 30 times last night, right? Russell Wilson has 8 different snap counts. Run 80, hey, can, turbo set, right? It's not hard to do if you practice it properly. And Sam's been the starter for the whole way. It's not like it's a backup quarterback in there. I really don't understand where the issue's coming from, but it has to get fixed.
A listener pointed out to me that the Vikings have ranked number 1 3 straight seasons in delay of game penalties, and there's been wasted timeouts. So I do think that this comes from the sideline. And Kirk Cousins, there were times where he was going, get the play in, and he would be frustrated. I do wonder about being the head coach and also getting the plays in, and if there is something happening there. And the other thing is, O'Connell really likes to talk to the referees. Is that part of this? Is it communicating? He loves to have this whole communication thing. Is he communicating with, what do you think we should do? What do you think you're seeing? Whatever, and not just getting the play in? Is there too many options for motions and stuff like that? Because I think, what game was it? Was it San Francisco where they had 2 guys in motion at the same time, and then Darnold's answer was to throw it toward the stands? Like just stuff like that. In the first week or two, you go, okay, got a new quarterback, I get it. But that now, wasting a timeout in a game like that with the Rams in the second half because you can't complete a pass and then go down and run another play, just not acceptable. And I think that that's been a major part of why this has not had that steady churn of an offense as we expected to.
And it also, it's like you said, we're the 16th best offense. We can't overcome those penalties.
Right.
Right. That's the difference. If you're the number 2 or number 3 offense and you're first and 15, whatever, well, that's not an issue. When you're middle of the pack offense, first and 15, or you get a holding penalty and it's second and 18 or whatever it is, it's might as well punt. Right. And that's what it's kind of felt like, is if we get a penalty, well, drive's over. And that's more of the issue, is you can't have procedural errors and be a middle of the road offense and think you're going to have success. I mean, you have to kind of be, if you're 16th, you got to be as buttoned up as possible, because the margin for error is so slim when you're trying to do those things. And so, yeah, the penalties have to get fixed there. This offense, you get them behind 2nd and 10 behind the sticks, they really have a hard time converting.
So do you think that they get back on track? Do you think that they win?
I do. I think they win. I think the Colts have enough question marks going on. I give the nod to US Bank, right? We're back home. You're going to get, is Cashman going to be back this week? Do we know?
Think
Is it
so.
questionable? He's going to be a big boost, right? He's a big boost because he's the play caller, right? You'd let Ivan Pace now be a little bit more free and not having to call plays and be in the huddle and doing that thing, and get him back in there with the green dot on his head. Let these guys, I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder from the performance they had last week from the defense, because they have been the guys all year, right? They've hung their hat on, we're the strength of this football team. This is what we do. They got shoved a little bit last week. I expect them to come out with their hair on fire and really get after Flacco and try and collapse that pocket. So I do think we get back in the win column this week.
Okay. Love to see it, hate to see it, to finish up the show. I will start with I'm happy for Russell Wilson. That a lot of folks thought that they should have stuck with Justin Fields. I get that. I wondered about that myself. And I'm also wondering about Sean Payton and the offense out there last year, Nate Hackett, and just this Russell Wilson play action, build off the run, throw down the field. He looks like Russell Wilson again. And I also love to see it. Mike Tomlin, every year, winning National Football League team. It is remarkable how consistent he is. Teams fire coaches. And it's the stable ownership that has the belief we've got an above average coach. We're going to stick with him. He's going to make the right decisions. They're a really darn good team in the AFC again, despite never being the team anybody ever wants to talk about going into a season.
I think I read a stat this morning that they've won 22 straight Monday Night Football games, which is insane. But that just is a testament to Mike Tomlin, right? Has his guys ready to play, gets the long week, and has everything go. So I agree with you. I'm happy for Russ. You want guys to succeed in the NFL. I very rarely root for guys to fail unless they say the NFL is easy, right? But other than that, I normally want guys to succeed in the NFL. I hate to see it for me is Houston losing Stephon Diggs to an ACL.
Yeah,
that's a hard one for them, you know, especially with not having Nico Collins, and then Diggs goes down. It's just that team seems to just have a lot of issues at the receiver position right now. I think if they can get Nico Collins back, they'll be okay. but also just hate that for Diggs. Late in your career, big time injuries like this are really an uphill climb. When you look at Von Miller with the Achilles, Kirk with the Achilles, Aaron Rodgers with the Achilles. I mean, historically, when you get up to 30 plus and have these bigger injuries, it's just really hard for guys to come back from. And Diggs was still playing at a high level. So definitely hate to see that for him.
And Houston's been an exciting team to watch this year, but now Nico Collins down and he's down, and now you have to rely on Tank Dell. That's going to be difficult for CJ Stroud. Another love to see it from me. Every single weekend, I make it an appointment to see Travis Hunter play football. This guy, what they're doing should have Deion arrested. There is no world where you could justify a guy being out there for 100 snaps every single weekend, and yet he's roasting people as a wide receiver. When he's on offense, I'm going, oh, he's a receiver in the NFL. I mean, just look at this. And then when he's at corner, I'm like, oh, he's obviously a corner in the NFL. And the answer is probably going to be a little bit of both from him. There hasn't been a talent like this since Charles Woodson in college football. And every single week, I just want to see it happen.
Yeah, he's absolutely incredible. And he's making a point for him to be a Heisman. He's also making a point for him to be pick one, because I think personally he should go play DB in the NFL because there's never enough DBs with the ball skills that he has to
Yes.
understand the route concepts from such a knowledgeable position, to know when he can bait a quarterback, when he can't bait a quarterback, and then having the athletic ability and ball skills to go make those types of interceptions. He is an absolutely unreal talent. He is so much fun to watch, and it's unfortunate that the Boise running backs having the year that he's having, because he's going to win the Heisman if he rushes for 2,000 yards in college football. But I mean, yeah, he has been so much fun to watch. It's been just incredible to see.
You got to love to see it.
I do. My love to see it is that the Bills are back. The
Yes.
Bills are 100% back. They're figuring their stuff out. Josh Allen is playing some of the best football of his career. He's taking care of the football better than he ever has. And they're relying on the run game with James Cook. Amari Cooper's now there. The defense is rounding out into form. They have a clear path to the playoffs because that division is an absolute nightmare. The Bills are putting themselves, we're looking for another matchup of Bills, Kansas City, again, heading into the Super Bowl game. And I am excited for it because I just love everything about those guys in that organization.
It's feeling very much like the days of Manning, Roethlisberger, and Brady, only now it is Lamar, Pat, and Josh. And also, we have to give huge credit to Sean McDermott. He went through a lot last year with a certain story that came out about maybe his past, but that he looked like a guy that had no idea what he was doing early in his career as far as relating to players. And that story really emphasized that. And yet he has continued. He guided his team through the DeMar Hamlin thing, and he's maybe a field goal away or a missed Chiefs field goal or whatever from that team. Eventually, as we saw from Peyton Manning, eventually the greats will get there. Drew Brees, a lot of different quarterbacks have come close many times, and then finally they get there and get what they deserve. And it's starting to look like Buffalo, and they've got an easy track. That division is terrible. The AFC, before the season, we're like, man, the AFC is just so good. It's so loaded. Now, like, it's probably a 4-team race. And the Texans just lost one of their best players. So we will see how it goes, Jeremiah, and then be back next week to break down whatever happens between the Vikings and Colts. Great stuff as always, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Football.
There you go.